Well, yesterday was fun with all of its pinkiness and dentistry and such. But today, I'm going to present to you what you all came here for and what anybody comes to the pony fandom for. At least according to some people. Full pony frontal nudity. We present to you Naked Singularity. The candles of Twilight's desktop glittered weakly. She had relied on them for light for so long they were burnt down nearly to nubs. Thin trickles of wax dripped down their sides and onto her desk, unnoticed as she scrolled feverishly in her notebook. Behind her, Spike mumbled in his sleep and rolled over, pulling his tiny blanket over his shoulders. She stopped writing and froze, her host covering the notebook until she was certain he remained asleep. It wouldn't do for Spike to read this. Oh no, this was definitely not for foals, or hatchlings for that matter. She slowly straightened back up as his quiet snoring filled her room. "Oh, evening, Glimmer," she whispered, uncovering the notebook. "You don't care if anyone sees, do you?" She danced off another sentence, the tip of her tongue peeking out between her lips. Another chapter done. Through the window, she could see the stars beginning to fade. First light of dawn was still an hour or two away, as he had written all night long. Again, Evening Glimmer's story, her story, needed to be told. She wondered if she had become obsessed. It happened with her before. Magic, friendship reports, centipedes. Probably just part of her personality. Fortunately, her friends were always there to keep her level. She watched the horizon slowly begin to lighten, the black of night washing away to pale gray tinted with pink. Maybe it was time to talk to her friends about this. One friend in particular. "I have a confession to make." Rarity paused, a cup of tea held at her lips. For a brief moment, she thought she misheard. So unexpected were the words. The sounds of ponies ordering food, eating their lunches, or chatting with friends filled the silence that followed. Every day a commotion of life in a small town. Confessions, however, were not everyday occurrence. Certainly not for Rarity. She set the tea down and leaned forward. "I'm sorry, darling. Come again." Twilight Sparkle glanced around nervously. She blushed, though only her closest friends could have noticed beneath her purple coat. Her ears wilted as she hunched forward to whisper, "I said, I have a confession to make." Her voice was soft but intense. "Oh!" This was going to be good. Twilight Sparkle of all ponies caught in indiscretion. Was it a stallion? A mare? 2 stallions? Her heart trembled with excitement. "What is it, dear?" Twilight glanced at the tables around them, searching for eavesdroppers. The few ponies seen nearby were engrossed in their own conversations. Lunch hour was nearing its end, and there was nothing unusual about 2 friends having a quiet talk at their favorite little corner cafe. Still, Twilight seemed nervous as though royal guards were about to leap from the shadows and slap her in chains. Rarity's anticipation jumped another order of magnitude. "I'm writing a novel," Twilight whispered. Rarity blinked. "Another?" she blurted. A few ponies glanced in direction for a moment before returning to their own conversations. Twilight flinched, a pink look on her face. "Rarity!" Rarity fought back a slow disappointment. The juicy confession wasn't so juicy after all. She gave Twilight a patronizing smile and reached out to pat her hoof reassuringly. "That's what has you so worried?" she asked. "Twilight, there's nothing wrong with being a novelist. I thought you'd understand as a librarian and all." Twilight grabbed Rarity's hoof as if it was a lifeline. "It's not that, it's..." She trailed off, blushing again. Rarity raised an eyebrow. "It's what?" Twilight took a deep breath. It's a romance novel." She spoke the last 2 words slowly, as though they tasted bad in her mouth. The disappointment ebbed, replaced by cautious interest. Perhaps all was not lost. "You don't say!" "That's perfectly fine, Twilight. Respectable, even." Twilight perked up. The haunted expression faded from her face, and her ears swelled towards. "It is, but I thought..." "You thought they were trashy," Rarity said. She waved a hope dismissively. "Twilight, romance novels are the best-selling books in all of Equestria. There's nothing ponies want more than to read about the triumph and love of an FSC." She sighed quietly, her eyes losing their focus. "Why, I have my own little collection of romance novels back at the boutique." "Yeah. What do you think is the top seller at my shop?" "I keep pointing out to everybody that we have cool other books like fantasy novels and epic adventures and quests and stuff like that. But no, they keep wanting me to bring out the romance books. Well, okay. Romance novels are my second best-selling. Do you believe that everybody in Ponyville really likes to buy the cookbooks I sell here? You do? Twilight seemed almost back to normal. Also even. Well, of course, darling. I'm better entitled to her fantasies after all. It's not surprising that a pony as educated as you will try a hoof at writing. Twilight was quiet for a while as she digested that thought. Eventually she nodded, a relieved smile on her face. Maybe I am worrying too much. Thank you, Rarity. You're a good friend. Well, of course, Rarity did her best not to smirk. The conversation turned to more mundane topics, and soon she had completely entirely forgotten Twilight's novel ambitions. The parcel was waiting on Rarity's doorstep as he opened the boutique the next morning. There was no note attached, just a purple starburst printed on plain brown paper wrapping. Rarity felt the loose leaf pages of a manuscript within when she picked it up. She smiled to herself and brought it inside. There were no customers yet, and unlikely to be any for several more hours. She could have passed the time working on other projects, or sorting her inventory, or balancing the books, or any of the other dozen things a small business owner needed to do to keep the ship afloat. Instead, she settled down on a plush couch near the eastern window, drinking in the early morning sun, and pulled apart the twined string sealing the package. Sleigh bells were already at school. In a few hours she would return, along with her two Philly friends, and they would do their best to burn down the boutique. But that was several hours in the future. For now, there was peace. A few pages wouldn't hurt, she told herself. Besides, this is a favor for a friend. What was more generous than helping out a friend? Nothing, that was what. She lifted her page into the air and began to read. This is terrible, Fluttershy said. She was her own bluntness. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, Rarity said. She was morose, her mind frazzled from hours of poring through the dense prose, incomprehensible dialogue, and wooden love scenes that populated Twilight's novel. Not even a novel, she corrected herself. It was a mismatch of incoherent scenes connected with sore and trashy glue. It's the truth. I feel terrible, though. What am I supposed to tell her? Hello, Twilight. I just finished your story and discovered absolutely no redeeming qualities in it whatsoever. I suggest you burn it before anybody else sees it. First, I considered that. To her credit, she didn't think about it for very long. I don't think that's a good idea. Maybe you should tell her it's a good first try? Rarity looked at her flatly. Her horn glowed, and a random page from the manuscript floated through the air. She cleared her throat and began to read aloud. Ahem. Oh, baby. Evening Glimmer moaned. She cried out in ecstasy, then in pleasure, followed by more ecstasy. Do me harder, mount me, make me a mare. Rarity set the paper back down. Fluttershy studied her hose. Maybe she's trying too hard, the Frankincense finally said. That doesn't sound like her. A pause. Or anyone. It certainly did it. So, what do we tell her? Rarity asked. Write something else? No! Rarity shouted. Fluttershy ducked beneath her wings at the outburst. I told her there was nothing wrong with writing romance novels. I can't go back and tell her to stop now. She'd be so heartbroken. Oh, Fluttershy said. That would be very bad. Very bad. We need to gently nudge her onto the proper path. Right. She considered that for a moment. We? Rarity smiled. Yes, we. More specifically, you. Oh, but, Rarity, I don't know how to critique any pony. Nonsense. Rarity dismissed her concerns with a wave of her hoof. You're the kindest and most gentle of us, Fluttershy, and you do know a thing or two about romance novels. Just give her a few ideas on how to improve. Do we have to? Fluttershy asked. I mean, why can't we just keep her from writing? Maybe she'll get better on her own. Rarity pulled out another page at random from the pile. Yes! Evening Glimmer cried. Yes, 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 yes! Yes, yes, yes! 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 Fluttershy sat in thoughtful silence for a while. Rarity started to reach for another page. Fine, Fluttershy said before Rarity could start reading. I'll talk to her tomorrow. You know, guys, the problem is, that was better than some of the lemons we presented on this channel. And that scares me. What's even scarier? You guys know that whole entire book episode that was a commentary done poorly and everybody hated it? It should have been this episode. This should have been that. This whole entire fic. Only without the saucy bits. Does have Twilight or one of the main six write a very poor book and everybody's having problems trying to tell them how bad they write it? Twilight Sparkle was at her reading desk when somebody knocked on the library door. For the better part of 3 hours, he had been furiously scribbled in a notebook, all the while reading from a series of novels floating around her in a literary cloud. The soft susurration of flipping pages and the scratch of her quill were the only sounds to be heard. Occasionally, she would pause and examine a particular passage in greater detail, her pen freezing in place as all her mental powers bent to dissecting the sentence and ferreting out the particular genius that made it so powerful. So powerful. Also hot, steamy, and sweaty. She had tossed open the library's windows in an effort to cool down. This was definitely more exciting than her studies on the magic of friendship. In 3 hours, Twilight had assembled more research into romance novels than any pony in history. She had studied dozens of heaving bosoms, hooffuls of throbbing stallion hoods, and enough maiden flowers to fill a garden. It was insightful. It was eye-opening. It was probably a little bit unhealthy. Time to take a break. Well, after one more chapter, she decided a moment later. The Black Stallion had just confessed his love to Berry Cream, and they were about to retreat to her secluded patio to joyously consummate their relationship. Twilight turned the page, a tiny bead of sweat trickling its way down to the side of her face when the knock came. She yelled in surprise. The constellation of books falling to the floor as she lost her grip on them. The thought of being discovered reading over a dozen trashy novels at the same time sent her a panic, and she scooped them up into a pile and shoved them under their desk. "One moment!" she sang. She grabbed a cushion from the couch and shoved it on the front desk. Not the best disguise, perhaps, but better than nothing. Before her guest could knock again, she trotted to the door and pulled it open. "Fluttershy!" she exclaimed. "Come on in. You know you never need to knock." She trailed off as she got a closer look at the Pegasus. Fluttershy seemed nervous, which was hardly unusual. What was unusual was the pound paper package held in her mouth. A brown paper package with a purple starburst on the cover. Twilight pulled her into the library and slammed the door shut before anyone else wandered by. "Where did you get that?" she squeaked, horrified. A blush spread over her face. "Did you read it?" Fluttershy set the manuscript on the floor. "Now, Twilight, you know we're your friends. You never have to be embarrassed or ashamed around us." That wasn't what Twilight wanted to hear. Her ears flattened back against her skull as she sank into the floor. "Oh, Celestia, you did! You did read it!" she moaned, covering her face with her hose. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all," Fluttershy said. She carefully avoided making eye contact. Wait, you mean that?" Twilight looked up, her eyes filled with hope. "You liked it?" Fluttershy was quiet for a while. Her gaze danced around the room, before eventually settling back on Twilight. Her hopeful expression hadn't changed. Fluttershy sighed quietly. "It was fine," she said, "but, Rarity and I thought of some ways to make it better. If you want, that is." Twilight nodded frantically, a pleading look on her face. Her outstretched hose grasped Fluttershy's forelegs. Fluttershy sighed again. "Well, first, you need to be more realistic with your scenes. Especially the, you know." She looked away, a blush on her cheeks. Right." Twilight scratched the back of her neck. "But I don't have much, experience with those things." "Oh, most romance writers don't." Fluttershy looked wistful for some reason. "That doesn't matter. Just write what you know, and try to make your story as personal as possible." "Personal? Like, about me?" "No, well, maybe. No, not yet." Fluttershy mumbled the last few words, as though she were speaking to herself rather than Twilight. "Try to put what makes you special into your story." What made her special? Twilight thought about that for a while, ears switching back and forth like flags. "I think I have an idea then." Not just any idea, a wonderful idea. Once Fluttershy was gone, she swept the hidden romance novels out from under her desk and flung them carelessly across the room. A spike resealed them later. She didn't care. She had an idea.
Make your story personal, she mumbled, echoing Fluttershy's command.
In retrospect, it was obvious, blindingly so. All those other novels were like cookie cutters. Change a few names, swap out the scenery, and they might as well have been written by the same pony. No originality, nothing special, nothing that spoke to her soul. But now, Twilight had an idea. A beautiful, precious, seductive, dangerous, alluring, sensual, sexy idea. She felt herself growing hot just thinking about it. Hot and other things. She checked to make sure the door was locked. She trotted over to her bookcases, ignoring the romance section. Her eyes danced across the shelves as she pulled some books into the air, floating them over her head. This called for some research. Anatomy, sociology, chemistry, physics! Lonely physics. How long had it been since any pony pulled this book from the shelves? She ran a loving hoof over the dusting binding. Twilight sat at her reading desk and gave the notebook a disdainful snort. The ticket scratch within was trash, worthless. She ripped the used pages out and flipped to a blank white sheet. A clean sheet, but not for long. Oh no, there was nothing clean about this. It was time to get dirty. Dirty with science. 1 week later, another package was laying on Rarity's doorstep when she opened the boutique. A package wrapped in plain brown paper with a purple starburst on top. She felt the start of a headache behind her eyes. Maybe Twilight had taken Fluttershy's advice and somehow produced a masterpiece of literature? A romance novel that would define their generation and be studied by scholars for decades to come. A story of love, loss, and redemption that would reduce even the most powerful stallions and dated mares to tears. Historians might someday refer to Rarity as the opus's first editor, and write lengthy treatises on her contribution to the arts. Or maybe not. She lifted it into the air, holding it away from her body as though it might somehow stain her dove-white coat. It was heavier, thicker. Twilight had been busy, it seemed. She briefly fantasized about burning the boutique down, the manuscript along with it. A terrible accident, she would tell Twilight. Nothing to do but move on and never write again. Alas, boutiques were expensive, as she had only the one. There was nothing to do but read through the story again. That's what friends did. In fact, the more friends, the better. She put a closed sign in the boutique window and trotted down the street, the packets floating serenely behind her.
You ponies out there in the audience can't see this, but he is smiling. He is trying not to break. Trixie bets that this fic will break him and he'll start laughing or giggling. Just you wait.
I don't see why I'm here, Rainbow Dash said. She was perched on one of the higher bookcases of Fluttershy's den. Was put her about head level with the other ponies in the room. Fluttershy's bookcases weren't that tall.
We're here to help a friend,
Fluttershy said as she walked into the room. A tray filled with teacups and a piping hot pot of water balanced carefully on her back, as she set it down gracefully on the little table in the center of the room.
Besides, you're not greedy now,
Rarity said. She had moved from her spot on the couch, the plain brown package that held Twilight's manuscript behind her.
You're perfect for this. I like reading about Derry Doo and her awesome adventures,
Rainbow shot back. She paused for a moment.
This doesn't have Derry Doo, does it?
Fluttershy glanced at the packets.
I don't think so, she said.
There would probably be copyright issues with that, Rarity said. Besides, Derry Doo is more for foes, young adults, she amended, nosing Rainbow Dash's glare. Fluttershy took a seat next to the coffee table.
So, have you read it yet?
She asked.
No, I haven't even opened it.
Rarity nosed the packets with her hoof. I think if we pick it up and each read a section, divide the pain, as it were. Her horn glowed as she took the twine knot apart and peeled the wrapping paper away. Naked Singularity, Event Horizons of Lust. The title was printed in small type in the center of the cover page. Rarity blinked at it.
Fluttershy,
she said, not taking her eyes from the page.
What exactly did you tell Twilight? I said make it more, personal.
Fluttershy ducked her head, hiding behind her mane.
More personal? That's not what we agreed to tell her. You were supposed to...
She trailed off with a sigh.
You know what? Never mind. It can't be worse than the last one.
Her horn glowed again as she broke the manuscript into 3 parts. He passed each one over to Fluttershy and Rainbow Dash. "Remember," she said, "Twilight put a lot of time, heart, and effort into this. We need to be good friends and put as much effort into helping her." With that, she set the title page to the side and began to read the novel's first line. Mass distort space. Greatest concentrations of mass distort space greatly. Evening Glimmer knew this simple fact, like she knew the back of her hoof. The theories of spatial relativity were Pole's play to the young librarian unicorn. She always believed the mysteries of time, space, and magic were firmly within her grasp. That was before she met him, before he galloped into her life. Now she realized how woefully incomplete the equations were. They accounted for matter and energy, but not for love. For just as mass distorts space, so too does love form its own distortion. Greater love creates greater distortions, until like matter crushed together under the force of gravity, it forms a point of no return. A singularity of love, an event horizon of lust, beyond which no feelings can emerge. Rarity stopped and returned to the top of the page. She read the paragraphs again. She was about to read them a third time when Rainbow Dash's voice, quiet and cowed, broke the silence.
I don't know what a lot of these words mean,"
she said. She sounded lost.
"That's fine," Rarity said. "This is a bit, different than Twilight Sparkle's attempt. It seems to be more,"
she trailed off, searching for the right word,
"technical."
She glanced over to see how Fluttershy was doing. The Pegasus was staring at her page, eyes wider than Rarity had ever seen. Her cheeks were practically glowing a fierce blush.
"Did you find the steamy section?"
she asked. Fluttershy bowed her head ever so slightly.
"Can you read it for us?"
The blush intensified. Fluttershy shook her head. Rarity blinked. Novels were like a sixth food group for Fluttershy. Nothing Twilight could have come up with could have been garnered such a response. She gently pulled the pages from under Fluttershy's hose and floated them back to the couch. Evening Glimmer mowed into his shoulder as something solid, roughly equivalent to a 3.5 on the Mohs scale of mineral hardness, pressed against her flank. It was something firmer than a calcite, though not as much as unforgiving as fluorite.
"Yes," the librarian cried. "Yes! Take me, you ruffian!"
Rarity glanced down to the bottom of the page. And sure enough, there was a detailed note marked with another asterisk on the density and chemical composition of calcite, fluorite, and several other rocks. The note spilled over onto the next page as well, with successes for additional reading.
"Fluttershy," she said again, "I need to know exactly what you told Twilight."
An hour later, the three friends had managed to choose through approximately a dozen pages each. Opinions were mixed. Among the three, Rarity was perhaps the most erudite, most educated, and most well-positioned to understand Twilight's technically accurate love scenes. Even so, she found herself reading over each one several times. They bore repetition. She flipped over a new page and read. Evening Glimmer collapsed on the mattress like an electron falling into a lower energy state. 3 times every hour for the past 6, she breathed heavily. They're going to name a new consonant after you. Only if we provide them with a sufficiently large data set, he whispered back. Rainbow Dash, surprisingly, seemed to be enjoying her section. The fact that she skipped over any paragraph with more than 2 lines probably helped her along.
"This is actually pretty good if you ignore the boring parts,"
she told the others.
"Check this out. Prism Slash reared up to his full height, towering over her like a stallion slightly taller than she was. No more, Evening Glimmer. For too long you have haunted my dreams like a Jungian archetype for unrequited love. Prepare to be taken," he cried.
Rarity attempted to digest that. Failed to circle back to the name.
Prism Slash? Yeah. He's a sky blue Pegasus stallion with a...
She paused to look up the word.
Prismatic mane. And he's the fastest flyer in all of Equestria. Sounds pretty awesome, huh?
Rarity and Fluttershy exchanged a glance. Awesome indeed, Rarity finally offered.
He seems a bit familiar, don't you think? Huh? No, never met anybody like him,
Rainbow Dash said.
Too bad, though. He really gets it to her.
She started reading another passage.
Harder, she moaned. Give me at least 10 newtons of force. Their bodies oscillated together like a pendulum with a period of 1/10F.
Rarity felt the headache returning. She put Princess Slash out of her mind for a moment and turned to Fluttershy.
How about you, darling? How's your section? Oh, it's, interesting,
Fluttershy said. She was blushing again.
Evening Glimmer has a bear friend.
Let me guess. Is she a yellow Pegasus? Fluttershy shook her head immediately. On self punny. She shook her head again. Rarity sighed. The headache goes back now.
Of course.
Why she didn't call him? Fluttershy bit her lip. After a long moment, she gave Rarity a tiny nod.
Kind of.
Rarity raised an eyebrow.
Kind of. Do tell.
Fluttershy flipped back a few paces and ran her portion of the manuscript, searching for a particular line. Eventually she found it and began to read.
My name is Uncommon, the slutty off-white unicorn mirror said. Her pelt bore a curious malted pattern, like a lab coat used in animal husbandry experiments for too long. I hear there's a librarian in Ponyburg looking for some, hot mirror action.
Oh, well, thank you, Twilight, Rarity said. Twilight. I suppose that could be worse.
Oh, there's more,
Fluttershy said.
Lots more.
Nice, Rainbow said.
I'll treat you sexist when you're done, Fluttershy.
And this, folks, is why I never let anyone else look at the manuscripts for Fall Starfleet. Twilight was a happy pony. The long nights were finally at an end. The novel was complete, and in the hopes of her friend / editor Rarity. She imagined the fashionista swooning over her complex sentences, edward pose, scientifically accurate descriptions, and technically perfect metaphors for the act of beautiful lovemaking. It was probably the best romance novel Rarity had ever read, she realized. Probably the best romance novel ever written. What sort of awards did they give out for excellence in romance novel writing? Something prestigious, certainly. She would probably have to go out to Canterlot to accept it. Oh, who she was kidding, she giggled to herself. The awards committee would come to her for this masterpiece!
Twilight?
Twilight yelled and dropped the books she had been carrying. She spun around to see Spike watching her warily from the kitchen floor.
Oh, hello, Spike.
She trotted over to him, beaming. He leaned back as she approached.
You're in a good mood today, he said. Got a new book? No, something better!
She enjoyed his sock expression for a moment before continuing.
I'm attending a literary recital in Canterlot this evening, she preened. Well, can I come?
Twilight blinked. No, he could not. She cast about for a reason, then settled a verse of the truth.
Well, you can if you want, she said. It's a love story, though. Kind of mussy.
Ugh! He made a face. Never mind that. I'll stay here. Another victory for reverse psychology. She beamed and ruffled his spines affectionately.
That's fine, Spike. It's not everyone's cup of tea.
Oh, this is going to get worse, isn't it? Princess Slash leaned over Evening Glimmer's supine form. Her lavender cloak glistened with sweat in the fading afternoon light. The cooling effect of evaporation was insufficient to quiet the twin fires burning in her heart and loins. See Dalton et al. For a complete discussion on the evaporation rates and the psychological effects thereof. Librarians, he said huskily. You drive me mad with lust. Evening Glimmer moaned. Never before had any point stirred up such incredible passions within her. Her resistance to its advances diminished, and in inverse proportion to the area of contact between their bodies. Rarity set the page down and rubbed her temple with a hoof. Her mood had not significantly improved since she found the manuscript laying on her doorstep. Guess I'm not sure there's much we can do, she said. I think we should have another talk with Twilight, all of us. She saw a glance of Fluttershy, who ducked beneath her bangs.
Why? This is awesome!
Rainbow Dash said. She nosed through her section of the manuscript, found a page she had dog-eared for reference, and began reading.
Evening Glimmer panted as Princess Slash went to work. Their hips rotated in time with each other, like two massive objects orbiting a common center of gravity in a classical two-body problem. Faster, she cried. Do you even know what that means?
Rarity asked. It was possible Rainbow Dash did. Weather ponies sometimes had strong grounding in physical sciences. And while Dad's never shown any real affinity for the subject, she may have had some sort of background expertise in astronomy or other.
Duh, they're having sex,
Rainbow Dash said.
Come on, Rarity, jeez.
Or probably not, Rarity decided. 32 novels were apparently still her speed.
Yes, well, that is the case, she said. But I still think we need to provide some new guidance for her before she invests too much time and effort in these scenes. Fluttershy, what do you think?
No response. Rarity glanced over to see Fluttershy, engrossed in her portion of the novel. Her face was flushed bright pink.
Fluttershy!
Eep. Pegasus stuck beneath her wings.
Sorry. It's just, maybe you should read this part.
Rarity sighed as he pulled over DePace to the couch. DePace somehow felt solid in her grip. Just being around it was making her wish for a shower. As he held it as far from her face as he could read. Uncommon ran a tender hoof down the trembling mare's side. Don't worry, love. It's just us, now. No one has to know your terrible, dark, dirty secret fancy. As long as you do as I say. Indian Glimmer moaned with fear and lust at an approximately 2-to-5 ratio. Their emotions mingled in the air, still like ions, disassociating in a solvent solution. Please don't tell my friends. I'll let you use the library for your preferred magical rituals. I'll do anything. That's right, Rarity whispered. Now then, which do you want first, the crop or the paddle? Rarity's eyes honed in on her name, and had been crossed out and the word uncommon penciled in above it. She sighed again. We're going to talk to her, she declared. Now! The evening crowd was just arriving for their after-dinner coffees when Twilight Sparkle stepped into the door. Sip! Was a trendy coffee house she remembered fondly from her days as a student in Canterlot. The coffee wasn't all that great, but the shop offered a quiet spot of relaxation, away from the hustle and bustle of Castle and Celestia's court. A spot in the far end of the spacious room was cleared of tables and chairs, all replaced by a raised stage and a microphone. Technician ponies were busy plugging in wires and adjusting the overhead lighting. Many of the nearest tables had already filled, and the quiet buzz of conversation permeated the air as more customers arrived for their evening recital. Good evening, ma'am. Are you here for the reading? Twilight turned to see a young orange Pegasus with a pair of history glasses smiling at her. To judge by her apron, she was one of the baristas.
Hello. Yes, I was wondering if there's any spots left for tonight.
Her smile widened.
For you, Miss Sparkle, we'll be glad to add a spot in the lineup. What work will you be presenting? A chapter from a novel I'm working on. It's a love story of sorts.
She paused for a moment.
If you don't mind my asking, how did you know who I am? Oh, everyone knows Princess Celestia's star pupil, she guessed. We're very honored to have you here tonight, I should add. This is probably going to be exciting.
Twilight blushed slightly. Hopefully she couldn't tell beneath her coat.
Well, I just hope to keep everybody entertained.
Oh, of course you will, she assured her.
Take a seat near the front. I'll send somebody along with a coffee in a moment. Regular? Double,
she corrected, then made her way to the front of the room. It was bigger than she remembered, with space for at least 100 ponies in the audience. Around half that number were already seated, with more filling in every moment. She found a spot at the last empty table left in the front row and took a seat. Her horn glowed, and a slim, bound manuscript floated out of her sable bags on the table before her. She only had time to make a copy of one chapter, but it was the best, the climax as it were. She twittered at her own joke.
Twilight!
Twilight jumped into her seat, bases falling to the table. She hastily scooped above and spun around to face the familiar voice that called to her. Mom! She got to the unicorn mare standing before her. The thought process in her mind came to a screeching halt.
Oh, look, Orion, I was right. It is her.
Twilight's mother, a pale gray unicorn with a striped purple mane, stepped up and wrapped her in a hug. A few feet farther back, a blue unicorn stallion with darker blue mane trotted up beside them. Twilight, we didn't know you were in Canterlot, her father said. Did you come for a recital? What to do? Bluff? Lie? Flee? Twilight considered all options before the calmer, more thoughtful part of her psyche came online. She had nothing to be embarrassed about. The recital was a cultural event meant for mature, educated ponies who would appreciate the value of her work. Besides, as she was going to be a famous author, her parents would have to find out about her story someday. Today was as good a day as any.
Yes, I did,
she said, straightening up to her full height, which left her a few inches shorter than both her parents.
In fact, I'm bringing a selection from my new book.
Her chin tilted up proudly.
Your new book?
Star Sparkle beamed at her.
Oh, my little Twilight, a novelist.
And at such a young age, too, Orion added. What's this book about?
Well, it's,
Her courage fled for a moment.
It's a, romance novel,
she finished softly. Her parents had leaned forward to hear.
A romance novel.
Her mother laughed.
Twilight, don't be embarrassed. We're all adults here. Why, I love reading a good love story as much as the next mayor.
Her father rolled her his eyes, but nevertheless smiled at her. As long as you're happy, Sparky, he said. So he blessed the use of her nickname. I'm sure you'll make us proud.
Right.
She visualized a blank checklist, adding an empty square at the top. Step 1. Make parents proud. Meanwhile...
So wait, what's a salty alkaline colloid?
Rainbow Dash asked. She was hovering beside Rarity and Fluttershy as they made their way across the town to the Ponyville Library, the pages of Twilight's manuscript still held in their hose. Her distracted flying habits had already sent her bumping into no fewer than 3 ponies, a lamppost, and a cabbage stall in the course of her brief journey. My cabbages!
What's the context?
Fluttershy asked.
Princess Lass just finished another marathon session with Evening Glimmer, and now she's using her tongue to sweat!
Rarity broke in rather hastily. She looked around furtively.
It's a sweat! If you'll please recall, we're in public!
She hissed out. Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy both blushed, said to remind her. Dash protectively recovered first.
Geez, Rarity, you don't have to be so uptight. It's just a story.
It's a story that is not appropriate for reading out loud, Rarity said. She saw her frightened glare, then turned back to their destination. The library was dead ahead, its open windows shining like a beacon in the dimming evening light.
Now remember, she told him, Twilight put a lot of time and effort into this story. We need to be gentle and encouraging with her. Encouraging her to write other stories.
She added to the last part with a glare in Rainbow Dash's direction. The 3 stopped in front of the library's front door.
Gentle and encouraging,
Rarity repeated to herself. She took a deep breath, opened the door, and walked inside.
Shirley, what are you doing here?
Twilight Sparkle stared at the fuchsia earth pony in surprise. The Ponyville Schoolmare was one of the last ponies Twilight expected to see at a literature recital in Canterlot. Up on stage, the technician ponies were making the final adjustments for the start of tonight's event.
Oh, hello, Twilight.
Shirley beamed at her. She took a step away from the long table she was helping up, alongside the wall. A small herd of fillies stampeded around her with the unrestrained energy of youth.
I'm volunteering with the Canterlot Benevolent Association for Impressible Young Fillies,
she added, moving clear of the gaggle.
We go on field trips once a month to various cultural events like this. Last month we went to a history museum.
A few groans emerged from the fillies at the attention of the museum. Shirley sought them a look, turned back to Twilight, her smile intact.
What's at the table?
Twilight asked. The fillies were pulling boxes in the door and shoving them under the table. A few others were unrolling signs drawn in butcher paper and decorated with glue and glitter.
We're doing a bake sale tonight, Shirley said. It's how we raise money for our trips.
The fillies set to their work with surprising industriousness. One opened the boxes, revealing trays of homemade brownies, cookies, and other treats. Another group arranged the goods on the table and set up a small cashier stand, with the final largest portion of fillies dispersed into the crowd, looking at patrons with huge, watering eyes and asking if they would consider supporting young, needy, vulnerable foals. Across the room, Twilight saw her parents forking out a huge wad of bits to the young unicorn. The filly grabbed the money in her mouth and galloped back to the table. When another filly took it, it dumped it into the cashier drawer. Twilight was vaguely surprised they didn't all have their extortion cutie marks yet.
I see. Are you sure this is really a good event for them, though?
Twilight felt herself starting to blush, and did a few quadratic equations in her head to calm down.
Some of these stories might be a little, adult for fillies these days.
Twilight, you're a librarian, Shirley said. She leaned closer, a voice dropping so fools could overhear them. Would you ever refuse to let a filly check out a book because it was too adult?
Well, no, of course not. But the section I'm reading deals with some very mature topics. I don't want to offend. You're reading?
Shirley beamed at her again.
Oh, I didn't realize. Twilight, please believe me. There's nothing a fine, upstanding young mare like you could write that would be harmful to these fillies. Why, sir, you'll be a wonderful role model for them. You think?
Twilight asked hopefully. No, dear, I know. The schoolmare gave her a friendly nuzzle, then turned around to break up a scuffle among the fillies. They appeared to be fighting over the evening's profits already. Twilight let out a quiet breath and trotted back to her parents' table. Orion and Star Sparkle sat quietly, looking at the two tiny, burnt muffins, their bits of purses. She took her seat across from them.
Does look interesting.
Her father sighed. I feel happy to have helped those fillies, he said. I also feel like I've been mugged.
She reminded me of Twilight when she was little, her mother said. Besides, it's just a few bits.
Twilight chuckled to hide her nervousness. She pulled up that mental checklist again, adding a second blank box below the first. Step 2. Be a good role model for impressible young fillies.
You know, right now, with the way things are going, I'm expecting a old stallion or mare from the old folks' home. And to wrap up tonight's embarrassment, Princess Celestia, Cadence, Shining Armor, and a dignitary from Saddle Arabia. Hello, Twilight.
Rarity glanced around the seemingly empty library. Pinefield's resident librarian was nowhere to be seen. Rainbow Dash and Fireside followed her in silently.
What moment?
A young voice called from within the kitchen. Thus as promised, a moment later Spike walked in, a towel in his hands as he brushed his claws clean of the evening's dinner preparations.
Hey, ladies, what brings you here? He asked.
What it is, Spike? Rarity trotted up to the dragon and looked down at him, and a serious expression on her face.
We need to speak to Twilight. It's important.
She's at the recital. I thought you'd be there with her.
Rarity stared at him, momentarily at a loss.
Recital?
Yeah, she's reading a chapter from some new book she wrote. Some kind of love story.
He made a face, then paused with realization.
But, if you want to go, Rarity, I'd be happy to accompany you.
Oh, no, she mumbled. No.
Spike, what is this recital? She clapped her hose on his shoulder and shook him vigorously.
It's at some shop at Canterlot. What's wrong? Is she in some kind of trouble?
He trailed off, realizing he was speaking to an empty room. The front door slowly swung open behind the three ponies. He shook his head. Mares.
Yeah, like I said, Trixie, the only way that Twilight's embarrassment could get any worse is if there happened to be an appearance by Princess Celestia!
And there goes the other shoe! Twilight and her parents clambered to their hose and began to bow as the princess approached their table. Princess Celestia stopped them with a raised hoof.
Please, my little ponies, there's no need for such formalities tonight. I just wanted to get away from the palace to take in some of the more popular entertainments of the day. When I saw you up here, Twilight, I had to stop by and say hello.
Twilight smiled up at her mentor.
That's very sweet of you, Princess. You remember my parents, I hope?
I certainly do. It's good to see you both again. She gave Twilight's parents a small nod, once they returned more deeply.
Your daughter has been a wonderful friend and student. You must both be very proud of her. Oh, we are, Your Majesty, more than you can know.
Star Sparkle gave her daughter a loving nuzzle, which Twilight endured with a wince.
Mom, not in public.
She whined under her breath. Her parents chuckled. Celestia smiled at the display.
I didn't realize you were in the city, Twilight. I take it you're here for the recital as well.
More than that, her father said. She's one of tonight's readers.
Oh, she has a novel. She has a novel,
her mother added, beaming.
Oh, is this true, Twilight?
Celestia turned to Twilight.
Twilight nodded. Yes, Princess.
Will you be staying for the whole evening?
I suppose I have to now. Celeste took a seat at their table. Around them, a small group of guards unpurposely took up station. The other patrons buzzed at the new addition for a few moments. Even in Canterlot, a visit by the princess was something unusual. I know you'll show the world what a wonderful student you've been. Highlight the value of an education in the arts and natural sciences. Twilight bit her lower lip. No pressure then. She imagined her mental checklist and drew a certain empty box beneath the first two. Step 3. Show the world what a wonderful student I've been, and highlight the value of an education in the arts and natural sciences. Later, the recital went about as well as Twilight expected. Some poetry, some fiction, some autobiographical sketches. She clapped appreciatively after each performance, trying to ignore the dozens of eyes staring at her table. Princess Celestia was responsible for most of the attention, she told herself. No pony was judging her silently. She glanced around to make sure. Nope, no judging. The hipster Pegasus trotted onto a small stage as the last of the applause died away. Thank you, Clarifier, for that wonderful poem. I'm sure it touched all our hearts. Next up, we have a pony who needs no introduction. She is a personal student of none other than Princess Celestia, bearer of the element of magic, and author of a soon-to-be published novel, from which she'll be reading a selection for us. Master and Gentle Stallions, Twilight Sparkle. A swell of applause filled the coffee house. Twilight stood and gave a nervous wave to the crowd, and at the gentle urging of her parents trotted onto the stage, her manuscript floating behind her.
Hello, everybody,
she said into the microphone. The glare of the spotlight turned the audience into a sea of dark shapes, more than it had been seen. The woodboards creaked as she took a comfortable seat. She spent a moment fiddling with her pages, tilting them this way and that in the bright light. The feel of the crisp pages calmed her mind. Paper, her oldest friend.
This is a little different than my usual writing, she continued. It's a work of fiction, an attempt, if you will, to bridge the divide between literature and science. For your consideration, I present this chapter from Naked Singularity, Event Horizons of Lust.
She cleared her throat and began to read.
Ahem. The Ponyberg Library was empty when evening glimmer returned. Empty, except for the sweet scent of Dorazzle. She tested the air cautiously. No doubt uncommon was here. The first stirrings of lust began to seep through her conscience, like particulates crossing from a membrane via cosmotic action.
The Evening Express train from Ponyville to Carolot pulled away from the station 5 minutes later after its departure time of 6:39 p.m. Rarity spent all 5 minutes silently seething over the delay. Rainbow Dash was not helping.
I don't see why all of us have to come, she said.
She swept manuscript parts with Fluttershy and was now reading about Evening Glimmer's adventures with Uncommon, as he set about corrupting Ponyberg through perverted, sexy magical rituals.
Can't you just go yourself with Twilight to come back?
No,
Rarity said. First, this might be hard on Twilight, and it would be better if more of her friends are there to support her when we put an end to this travesty. Rainbow Dash opened her mouth to say something, but Rarity rolled right over her.
Second, she said, it'll be easier for me if I have the two of you backing me up.
Dash rolled her eyes.
This isn't a big deal, Rarity. I think the book's fine. It's better than some of the Daring Do stories.
Fluttershy and Rarity exchanged a glance.
You don't think it's a little,
Fluttershy trailed off, lost her search for an appropriate term.
Unusual?
She finally suggested.
Unusually awesome? Check this out!
Rainbow Dash nosed back a few paces.
Evening Glimmer cried out in pleasure. The ecstasy doubled and redoubled in her mind, like a pile of fissile material reaching critical mass. Neutrons traveling at the speed of lust, colliding with sensual nuclei, splitting into two smaller, slightly less sensual nuclei, but also releasing more lusty neutrons. And then, when on to impact on dissel nuclei, the chain reaction continued until the number of sensual nuclei fell below the level necessary to sustain the reaction. Oh yes, he moaned.
There was a long pause as Rarity attempted to digest that passage. She failed. What? She finally said.
What do you mean, what? That's awesome!
It was going to be a long train ride to Canterlot. Twilight Sparkle felt herself getting into a groove. It was actually pretty fun. She couldn't see the crowd's reaction, with the glare from the spotlight and all, but the simple pleasure of reading her own high-quality writing eased her nerves. The silence was a good sign, no doubt, a sign that the audience was enraptured by her characters and their adventures.
Evening Glimmer and Uncommon strained towards the ceiling for one final moment of pleasure, then fell to the mattress like a quantum wave function collapsing after interaction with an outside observer. Oh my, Evening Glimmer crooned to her lover. The neighbors must have been watching. Uncommon chuckled at the darkness. That is but a hint of the pleasure I could show you, Evening Glimmer, she said. She traced a slow hoof down her slightly undulating side. Her curves formed an almost perfect sinewy wave. Come, forget Princess Slash, and know the joy that only another mare could teach you.
Twilight Sparkle paused to take a breath. It was definitely getting hot up on stage! An hour later, the early evening express train from Ponyville to Camelot pulled to the Grand Central Terminal in Camelot. The conductor Pony said somehow made up for their late start, managing to shave nearly 7 minutes off the nearly established travel time. Rarity hadn't noticed. Listening to Rainbow Dash reading lines from Twilight's novel for the past hour had destroyed any sense of time she might have possessed. When the door finally opened, she tossed herself into the platform with a relieved gasp.
Oh, thanks, Celestia! She gasped. We're here. Now, what is this recital again? Spike said it was at a coffee shop,
Fluttershy offered. She trailed behind Rainbow Dash, who was swerving erratically through the air while still reading.
But there's dozens of coffee shops at Camelot. How will we find it?
Fluttershy shrugged. Rainbow Dash drifted until she bumped into a lamppost, then sank to the ground, manuscript still in her hose. No help. No help at all. Rarity seethed quietly and tried down the street, leading to Camelot's upscale market district. The two Pegasi trailed behind. Meanwhile, Twilight wiped her brow to the hoof. Sweat was starting to trickle into her eyes. The spotlight was incredibly hot. Yes, the spotlight. She took another breath and continued her recital.
You must reject Uncommon and her evil, sexy teachings, Princess Slash cried. She will bring you only ruin. Ruin and some pleasure, but mostly ruin. But I cannot resist, Evening Glimmer cried. Help me, Princess Slash. I will help you, Evening Glimmer, he cried. I cannot resist you. He rode her like a train departing Canterlot at 4:27 p.m. at a constant velocity of 35 kilometers per hour and making stops every 20 minutes in Manhattan, Philadelphia, and Trondheim. But the train was actually a metaphor, and the trains were actually heights of passion, pinnacles of lust for which he spent long minutes in moaning recovery. Oh yes, she moaned.
The doors to the tiny corner of the coffee shop burst open in a flash of magic, followed shortly by a breathless, slightly bedraggled white unicorn.
Twilight, stop!
Rarity shouted. The shop was empty but for a few patrons mulling over their coffees. The barista looked over her counter with a bemused expression. I'm sorry, miss. Stop what? He asked. Rarity hung her head. It was the third coffee shop they had tried. Part of her mind reasonably pointing out that it would be easier to simply open the door and check for a literary recital, rather than bursting in and yelling. But Rarity was a bit of a drama queen, so she ignored that piece of advice.
Not here either, huh?
Rainbow Dash asked. She finally studied the manuscript after it became too dark to read.
Maybe we should just ask where it is?
Fluttershy said. Rarity opened her mouth to shoot the idea down, then paused. It was better than her current strategy.
Well, let's. Excuse me, sir. Do you know of any coffee shops holding a literary recital tonight?
Yep, it's right across town, on the corner of Bridal and Pansy Streets. Good shop. Used to work there years ago.
Oh, thanks, Celestia,
Rarity said.
Come on, girls! Wait! Rainbow Dash said. She was leaning on the counter. They have ice cream here. Let's get ice cream!
Rarity glared at her.
No, we are not getting ice cream. We are going to find Twilight and stop her before it's too late. But what if it's already too late? Dash countered. We might never get ice cream. Besides, this guy helped us. We owe him.
The owner nodded his head at this logic.
Fluttershy, help me out here.
Rarity turned to the other Pegasus.
I'm I want what will ever cause the least interpersonal conflict, she said.
Yes! Rainbow sherbet, please!
Gradez fizzed a few bits out of her saddlebag and dropped them to the counter.
Butter pecan for me.
Firesight said, nosing her own bits at the counter. Rarity scowled at them both. They both looked return was full of innocence and ice cream. Finally, she sighed.
Fine. Double chocolate, but only 1 scoop!
Meanwhile,
No, Evening Glimmer, Princess Slash cried. Ignore her. She will betray you in the end. You're a fool, Princess Slash, Uncommon purred. Look at her. She already made her choice. Evening Glimmer moaned in passion, crushed between the two of them on top of their bed. Her lust increased exponentially, rapidly reaching heights beyond her wildest graspings. I can't decide, she whimpered. Please, don't make me choose. You must, they cried simultaneously. The stereo echo took her to her core. It is a binary state, Princess Slash said. 1 or 0, on or off, her or me. I already done the equations, Rarity whispered. They only have one solution. You must choose me. Twilight paused, a bit breathless. Wait, that was a typo. I should have said Uncommon. Right there, not Rarity. You probably knew that, though. Moving on! As he raised the paces again. Evening Glimmer shuddered. I cannot. You must choose for me. Whichever you makes me feel the most pleasure, he or she shall win my heart. Challenge accepted, Princess Slash slowly. Uncommon laughed, already triumphant. Twilight took a deep breath and lowered the pages. And that concludes chapter 12. You want to see how naked Singularity ends? I'm afraid you'll have to wait until...
The door slowly burst open with a flash of magic, followed by an exhausted white unicorn.
Twilight, stop!
The audience turned to Rarity. From the expression on their faces, she suspected she was too late. Gradez tried in beside her.
Hey, there she is! See? I told you we had time for ice cream! Best punchline ever!
Twilight Sparkle sat at her table, alone. The pages of her manuscript were stacked neatly before her, so she tried not to look at them. Her parents were the first to approach. Sparkle stopped by her side, cleared her throat.
That was a very interesting story, dear, she said. It was very...
She trailed off.
Detailed, yes. It was very detailed. I'm glad I was able to hear it. So glad.
Twilight mumbled something unintelligible. All those fillies were listening, Orion said. He still wore a slightly spooked expression. Sparkle gave him a worried look.
Anyway, it's a bit late for us old folks,
her mother continued, as though she hadn't spoken.
So I'm afraid we need to run. It was wonderful to see you, though, dear.
She leaned down to give her daughter a kiss on the forehead. Orion stepped to her to do the same. Stopped, restarted, then stopped again. Followed with a prod from his wife, he leaned down and gave Twilight a light peck on the cheek. We love you, dear, Star said. She paused.
Like family. Parents.
There was another awkward pause, and they shuffled off. Twilight decided that no, it was not possible to die of embarrassment. If it were, she would have at this point. Charlie was next. She sidled up to the table, her eyes wide, her motions slow and careful, the way one might approach a wounded animal. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. More silence. It wasn't awkward. That line had been crossed so long ago it ceased to have any real meaning.
When I want to grow up, I want to be like Uncommon, one of the fillies yelled from outside. Her name's not Uncommon, it's Rarity,
another voice shouted.
Nuh-uh,
Charlie and Twilight listened to the back and forth for a few moments. Charlie opened her mouth as though to speak, paused, apparently thought better of it, then simply turned and left. Celestia was last, after the coffee house had started to empty. She still wore her gentle smile, the same as always. Twilight waited for the other shoe to fall. The princess took a seat at the table beside Twilight. She didn't speak, and the smile didn't move from her face. Twilight foot up there.
That was terrible, wasn't it?
She asked. Celestia tilted her head and thought, well,
I thought it was entertaining, she said, but as far as its literary qualities, I'm afraid it's a bit lacking.
Twilight set her head on the table. Celestia chuckled and rubbed her back with a hoof.
I know it seems bad, Celestia said, but living as long as I have has taught me something, Twilight. Embarrassments like this may seem like the only thing in the world right now, but believe me, you'll look back on this and laugh.
Twilight sniffed.
Really? Oh yes. I would suggest you try your hoof at more prosaic topics, though. They make for better practice.
Twilight had managed to chuckle at this and leaned against her mentor. For the first time since the recital ended, she started feeling better.
I'm sorry, I hope I'm not interrupting.
Twilight raised her head. Rarity and Prosa was standing across the table from the princess. Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy hovered and sat, respectively, in the background.
Oh no, Twilight said. She stood inside. I think it's time to leave anyway. The bartender's been giving me some unfriendly looks.
They glanced over to see an orange Pegasus glaring at their table.
Yes, I see,
Rarity said. She turned back to Twilight.
I'm very sorry about this, Twilight. I feel like I should have said something sooner. Maybe some of this could have been avoided. It wasn't your fault, Rarity. I was so convinced I was writing a masterpiece. I doubt I listened to you anyway.
She scowled at the pages resting on the table.
I should have listened more to my editors.
So wait, Rainbow Dash said. You just giving up on it? I thought it was awesome!
Twilight blinked at her.
You liked it.
Of course I did!
Rainbow Dash pulled a mouse grab out of her saddlebags.
This is better than Daring Do, especially Princess Slash. He was great!
Twilight blushed, her eyes widening.
Oh yes, Princess Slash.
She let out a quiet, nervous laugh.
You like that part?
Of course! He was awesome!
Dash nose through their faces.
Oh, what's prismatic mean anyway?
There was a moment of silence. The assembled ponies looked back and forth between Twilight and Rainbow Dash.
It means,
Twilight trailed off. She glanced at Rarity, who shook her head slowly.
It means rainbow-colored, My Little Pony.
Celestia finally offered.
Oh,
Rainbow Dash said, eye brightening.
So his mane is...
Wait. She paused in thought.
Wait, so...
Her eyes widened in comprehension.
Oh no. That means I was... Ew! Ugh!
She began screaming at her chest with her hose, as though trying to run something off.
No! I wanted his... Oh, Celestia! It's me! It's me!
And the horse finally crosses the finish line,
Rarity said flatly.
By the way, Twilight. Uncommon. Thanks for that.
Twilight blushed.
So you recognized...
She paused.
Ice cream? Any pony?
Fic is great. Every pony's a character. This works as a better episode than Fame and Misfortune.
This is why I say, and I've been saying, the problem with our fandom,
we had already done every single story that could have been done by the official writers. There was literally nothing they could have done after season 5 that we didn't already do multiple times. Heck, the alternate timeline thing was already done. One down, thousands more to go. See you next time.